Hello and welcome to another episode of Mitten Backstage. Hope you're doing well. Hope you are feeling rested and ready for today's episode with Randall Erno. He is a Michigan musician that tours and plays with Biomassive, but does a million different things behind the scenes, including, working in the past with other touring groups, working in production, audio engineering, and also with different festivals. So I was happy to sit down and chat with him today before he embarks on his tour with Biomassive across the U.S. for some select outdoor dates. If you liked today's episode and would like to contribute to these podcasting efforts, you can head on over to patreon.com/Tracy Snedeker. There, you can contribute at different tier levels to get access to early releases of podcast episodes in audio and video format, merch discounts, a mailed newsletter with different stickers with custom artwork from commissioned Michigan artists, and the ability to hire me for consultation, instruction, or even recording services. You can also head over to DutcherSnedeker.com to see what I'm up to all across the internet. So thanks again, and feel free to share this with someone who you think would enjoy these types of conversations that I'm having with musicians in the Michigan music scene. And don't forget, you can follow, like, subscribe, wherever you happen to be listening or watching this. You can always show your support that way. All right, let's get right into the conversation with Randall Erno. Could I actually see before the...
No doubt, dude.
Yeah, thanks for, jumping on, and I'm curious to see, like, because you just said you're gonna be, going and doing a tour with Biomassive, very soon.
Yeah, so I get my back shot on Friday at 1, load in at 4. We play our first, so we're doing 2 hometown shows Friday, Saturday, and then we leave Wednesday, and we're doing like a 12-day run to Florida, and then straight home.
Nice.
Yeah,
it seems like anytime I've heard the word tour, it's not like, a string of Michigan dates. It's like we got one here and one in this state and one, like 3 in Florida and 2. It's like it's this, cobbling together of some kind of route. But I don't really, with Earth Radio, we obviously want to keep branching out, but I don't have that routing brain fully formed yet of like even where to look for certain stuff. So I can't imagine like, sending out like, hey, are you open? Is the guy I was talking to last year working there still? Is this even a business anymore?
yeah, there's a lot of that. It's almost been inspiring in a way, because I feel like I was bothering a lot of people before in a way, like, come on, Luke, like I've been on panels with you, like give me that founders gig, bro, like and like now I'm just like, hey, random person I've definitely never ever met, like, do you want to do this? Like, if so, how? And it's almost like open more communication, because I feel like there was like the promoter mentality before of like, I'm too busy, you better say what you need to say in like 8 words or less.
Right.
And now it's like, how do you want to do this? Like, should we do it like honor system? Do you want to do it outside? Should we serve pancakes? Like everybody's like reinventing it, which has been fun.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see the, like some of the venues who've been able to adapt to like outdoor shows, or even like places that never would have considered music, that have always been like a fan of music. They decide like, oh, well, we could put like, a singer on the patio. We could put like a band on the back deck. We could, we built a small stage area just because we had the time.
Yeah, exactly. We've been really lucky. We started working with Kevin Lamb, who does like, I'm sure.
After your call.
Okay, buddy. And he's been working with Dixon's violin, and they've been doing a bunch of stuff in Florida. So like, I think they did like 54 shows or something like that in 3 or 4 months. So yeah, same thing. Like he's like been able to like coach people. Like, you want to have a show on your patio? This is what we do. So like we've been lucky to have him like kind of guiding the ship in that respect.
Yeah, and and I've been seeing like some of those posts just because, yeah, he's just been out, and I see the shots of like, Dixon playing to the crowd, and and I don't even know if that's his name. I haven't met him yet, but if it's really Dixon's violin or if there's like a lore to the name, I don't know. But I've seen him around at least, and I always, in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, that's sweet. I'm wondering if that's accessibility because he's a solo artist and it's easier to be like, hey, it's one person rather than trying to book a band and have everyone's needs met. It's like, oh, it's a dude who's comfortable figuring out stuff with him and another person. So I'm wondering, like, because Biomassive is what, like 7 people, six
Yeah,
people.
yeah, it is interesting that it's funny that Kevin has the joy of like a solo artist and then us. So we're 7 piece now, but we tour with 2 techs as
Oh,
well.
right.
So there's going to be 9 of us on this tour, which has posed all kinds of interesting things. Like we're at capacity in our van, in our trailer. Um, like before I came up touring in like punk rock music where it was just like yelling on the microphone, like, what's up? We don't have a place to stay tonight. Like, where are we going? And like it like works, like it always worked. And now we're like, hey, can you put up 9 of us in your house? I know there's this like pandemic, and obviously like we're traveling around collecting potential molecules of it.
Right.
So it's been a crazy dance for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's at least good to see that, there is this kind of shared, like, as much as like you hear like, oh, we definitely need support in the music industry, there's still a ton of like infrastructure things that need like just money, or to be able to pay for employment, to have certain things go on again, or like, healthcare for musicians, and like all these things that uh venues have been getting harder, or venues having a harder time getting access to funds and all that stuff. And then to also have this kind of interesting like semi grassroots movement of like, yeah, well, what can we do that's music, and like offer those spaces and offer those opportunities rather than you know just kind of like just be closed and kind of just not thinking proactively. Not to
Yeah.
say, just like, I know certain venues can't, they don't have a parking lot, or they don't have an outdoor space, but I just like there's kind of a camaraderie out of necessity in a lot of communities.
Yeah, definitely. I've noticed that that was something that's been helpful on this tour. So like when you route off days for weekdays in particular, you iconically you're like stuck between like, oh, should we go play the show to 20 people in a city we've never been in, or take the day off or whatever. And I've been finding like live stream communities to fill our off days. So
Mm,
like we're gonna go stream at the University of Georgia Tech on like a Wednesday that we were routed and had nothing else going on.
yeah.
So it's like I used to do like press and shows were 2 separate things in most cases, or you have to night drive to the next show to like go on the radio at 9 a.m. And now it's like you could kind of do both, which is I feel like uncommon territory. And then we're gonna bring the live stream rig with us as
Mm.
well. And like I think we're gonna like do a couple songs per night through the live stream. So it's like a collection of the tour via a couple of songs a night rather than like broadcasting the set every night.
Right, because I have heard, at least I try to gauge like, a lot of my friends who are, they're fans of the Michigan music scene in various capacities, or they music is a part of like their weekly thing, or sometimes it's people who are like, they save up for Electric Forest and like 2 other things, and that's their big music experience during the year. It's been interesting hearing people who are like, you know, they love like, oh yeah, I love being able to just turn on a stream, sit in my pajamas, eat snacks, like, and you know, if I don't feel like going out, I still have access. And then there's other people who obviously they'll never watch a stream, and they need the physical being in the venue type of thing.
Yeah.
And it
I
doesn't it seems like they're working together more than taking away from a physical, yeah, like, oh, the stream's going to take away from the in-person crowd. It's like, maybe, probably not, but
Yeah, yeah, that has been super interesting. I've felt that myself too. We did a lot of live streams in quarantine, but what we decided to do, well, for one, like being 9 people, we were like at the limit of like the state mandated like pause. So it was like
mm,
even just getting together to rehearse, like we were breaking laws essentially. So it kind of forced us. We started doing like duo and trio streams of like have our drummer play a mandolin instead, or like switch up the format of the band. So like I that's, to me, that's more interesting for bands when they, and I've seen some of yours too, of like doing effects with keyboards and really cool stuff like that. And to me, I think that's the glory of a stream, is like, here's something that I think is really cool, but I maybe wouldn't do a whole show worth of it for like a paid ticket.
right. Yeah, it's like it gives people a chance to like they can try something without, you know, having too many hurdles of like, well, I don't want to, you know, parking sucks, I don't want to go out that late, I don't want to pay for a ticket, I'm not going to drink, I don't want to be in a bar. Like, you just take that all away. It's like, can you just flick on your phone, just check it out for 10 minutes? If you dig it, keep watching. If not, like, thanks for checking it out.
Yeah, and that's another interesting point I've found with this tour too, is like all of our show times are like 7 to 10, like 8 to midnight, stuff like that. Like we're used to being like the late night hypnotic band that goes on at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I like, it got me thinking, like, is society at the point where like we're like having that conversation you just mentioned of like, I don't want to stay up past midnight. Like I just don't. So if I'm going to go to the show, I'm going to go early, and like our club's working backwards to suit the needs of this new like human conditioning from the pandemic.
Yeah, I've definitely seen people who I've always known to be like, yeah, they're the last people I see at a show. You know, if I was working a Founders show, like, you know, we're still tearing down, or like we're still at the place, and there's people who are there hanging around till right after the close, and then they're still looking for something else to do. It's like some of those people are now like they take that energy and they just shift it a few hours earlier.
Yeah, totally. I've been doing it myself, honestly. I was reading this like book about this guy. It's called the 444 Club. It was like a trending Instagram thing for a minute of like getting up at 4:44 a.m.
Whoa.
And so I started pushing my wake up time. And like that's pretty much how I produced most of our album, was between like 5 a.m. and 8 a.m. before like my family got up, before people like started calling me and stuff like that. But then I made the mistake of telling people that I was doing that. And now I have people that are like, oh, it's 7 a.m. I know Randall's up, and he's the only person I know that's up. And they'll hit me up, which is fine. But yeah, I feel really productive in those early morning hours. So it's going to be interesting on this run to like obliterate my like dad core sleeping schedule.
Yeah, I've been thinking of like uh you know, ways of even just getting up before I did it for a while. I was, you know, getting up before like 8, 7, and that even just that shift was like, oh, yeah, same thing of like nobody's really up that I normally work with. So I have time to like do some of, you know, check an email or like play around with a thing, or, you know, do something that I can just focus on. And then, you know, 11, 12, that's when people start texting, start, you know, some people start waking up.
Yeah, no doubt. Members of my band included.
Yeah.
Although a lot of them are getting conditioned to a similar sleeping schedule, so that's been kind of nice.
Yeah, and to have like a show end at like, like midnight. It's like, okay, it's like that's used to be an early show, and now it's like, okay, things are ending at like the listening room ends at 9, and I'm like, a gig that ends at 9, like that's never been a thing.
That's pretty nice though. I mean, and that does give you like the opportunity, like where you can cool down a little bit. Like when we play at 2 a.m, get off at 4, like pack up. I mean, sometimes it's like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. Like the sun's coming up at festivals sometimes when we're in our groove before. So I don't really miss that too much.
Yeah. Well, and I'm wondering too, like, bringing on tech people with your tour, like there is going to be that like imbalance just from like, oh, the tech people are going to be, doing something ahead of when the band's loading in, but they've already started, setting up this, like you toured like a board or something, like an M32 or something.
Yeah, we do have an M32. Good guess. Yeah, so we our front of house guy Wes, we have a front of house console, we have in-ear monitors, and then Wes actually taught himself how to run lights this year too. So we've had other lighting guys, and we will in the future. Like we work with our boy Bubbles and the DeWitt brothers from the Hippo Camp. And then we just started bringing on this video guy. He's super cool. His name's Cookie. His handle's called Eye Candy, and he's doing like analog circuit bending live. So we're touring with like a TV VCR combo, and then we have these like old school like VHS camcorders that we're pointing around the room. So he captures like the fragmented light inside of the room and then these old school VHSs and distorts them like in real time, projected on us and or a screen.
Yeah.
So we just started doing it. So it's going to be fun to see how it works out. But like the pre-production has been really fun to do it.
Yeah. Just like that's been something that I know with Earth Radio we've talked about, is like figuring out how to integrate more visual things to match, the different textures and sounds that, like if Justin throws on like the mood on his bass, and you get all these like sparkles and bubbling, bursts of notes, to like have something that complements that would be cool. And I know one thing I haven't tried live yet is the Justin bought the IZ, the video synth from the Critter and Guitar-y guys who make like the organelle little wooden button looking synth thing that's really cool. And it's like it's a simple, like you can route in S video or HDMI signals, and then it generates you can manipulate certain types of backgrounds, like tessellate different shapes, different colors, different, a lot of it like controlled with just 4 knobs and like whatever audio feed you get. But it also has MIDI. So I was like, oh, there's an opportunity to like, I haven't tried it yet, of like chaining, like what if I chained my keyboard inputs to like, will it affect that? Or
yeah, it totally would, as long as you set it up as an external source on your keyboard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that whole world is so amazing. And I was watching this video. I've been really into like composers lately. Like that's really I've just been listening to like Hans Zimmer and like major motion picture soundtracks and stuff lately. It's kind of weird, but it's just been what's been inspiring me. And I like listen to this whole big podcast about how like film audio is really the cream of the crop when you think about it. Like it's the top people, and you're invoking emotion through like both mediums. And like that's something we've always wanted to do and pretty much done, but like it's been as basic as like audio lights. And like there's only so much that can be translated between lights. And yes, they're expressive, and certain lighting designers are really good that they can be quite expressive, but like the video side, like you can't match that in my opinion. And as technology like decreases in price, like I don't know if you've gotten targeted by these ads on like Instagram or whatever, like these like, hey, do you want to watch Netflix from your bed? Here you go, $30, and it casts on your ceiling. You know, like the technology is getting so cheap that like you can really get creative with that.
Yeah, that's I've seen a lot of people who they don't rush out and buy like, the fancy camera to try and use as like I'm going to shoot footage and also have it be like a webcam source. It's like people are, if they have the extra money, they find like, oh, I'll find a used like iPhone 10, and then it's like, okay, I can shoot up to 4K, a certain frame rate, and I can still, have a 1080p webcam, but it's something I'm already used to, like plugging into my computer.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
it's like just having having that thought of like, oh yeah, phones are at a point where they're just, it's as your starter cam. And that's cool that like people can, like if they're sitting at home, like, what do I do? Let me use my high-tech phone I'll just plug in my phone. Like, why do I need to buy anything right away?
Yeah,
Just try that.
definitely. To that point, and back to my earwax story, I just bought this thing for like $30 on Amazon that's like to clean earwax out of your ear, that has like a telescopic camera inside of the
Oh,
pen to go in your ear for $30, also on a phone. You know, so it's like as musicians, I feel like so many things like work backwards for us, as far as like we can't just go play music. Like we have to do like our own marketing and record our own albums and like videos and all this stuff. But like if you look at it from like a business P&L standpoint, like our greatest advantage is the decrease in the cost of technology, and like how you can really do something special by capitalizing on that, especially if you have to do 20 different businesses to keep your little one afloat.
yeah. Well, and so like for you mentioned that the live stream setup, is it just like you have a few cameras, or is it like each person sets up their phone and it's like it's set up on a switcher? Like I don't even know, like take a video thing on the road. I just think, oh, iPhone on a camera stand, and I have a way to plug it into the board if I need to.
Yeah, so we have two setups, and then like we're gonna integrate them. So what Cookie does is he has camcorders, and that goes into a switcher with his TV and stuff, and then he sends one signal. The setup I've been working on before he got here is like I have 4 GoPros that are on mic stand tripods, and then I feed that to a video switcher. And then I have it going into my computer, and I have it going to a projector, and then I have another computer with Resolume doing live visuals that I also run into the switcher. So at any point he could cue on the video switcher one of the 4 GoPros, like as if we're at like a huge drive-in show, like he's soloing cool, hit this MIDI button, and then on the screen is like the guitar is blown up, and then the Resolume feed can overlay over all of that, and then you can record it all in live time, and then we send like an RCA to and from the board, so we're getting the board feed in but then sending it back to the board to tape it on an aux.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's like that sounds like you know, the having that setup, it sounds like it's just a fun way to be like, okay, we have all these things happening. What if we just like affect one part of the chain, and then suddenly like the stage is changed, the stream can change, the like if it's being recorded, that can like be a separate thing. Like it offers in terms of like, enhancing a show, or like, oh, we can clip out this part for a, Instagram, or like it offers a lot of like variety to have multiple things taking footage of things.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, man, if I went back, what I've realized recently after making this thousands of dollars in purchases, like, do you know that with webcams, they in OBS, they act as their own source. So like I'd read all this stuff about like how necessary switchers were. And then once I like bought a couple webcams, I was like, dude, like your computer is a switcher. And if you have like, you can have infinite webcams set up that you have USBs for, and just in OBS, like triggering them with your keyboard without $1,000 switcher and like $500 in HDMI cables and the cameras and all of that.
Yeah, that's true. Like I've only done it, you know, I've worked like Founders has that 2 camera setup, and then I've done a 2 camera thing where I've just set it on auto pan when I'm like running it myself and I can't like switch my own things. I can just have it like, all right, it'll look overhead for a second and then sideways. But I don't think I've done that enough yet to feel comfortable, but I at least know how to I know how to set it up. I just haven't like my second camera is like was it like an SJ cam like that I bought like 5 years ago, and it has this weird like yellowing I can't get rid of. So
Yeah,
it just looks old and
which is like now that stuff's coming back around. It's kind of cool. Like we're purposely like bringing some broken gear kind of stuff just for that purpose. But you want your natural stuff too. But it's like it's got me thinking of all the random stuff I've thrown around, like thrown away over the years that like that just has a random yellow mark. But maybe that could be cool. Let's add more marks to it, you know?
yeah, it does like you could get that like DIY or like filter kind of vibe without, you know, having to add a filter. It's
Yeah,
like
exactly. Our video guy was getting super pissed because he kept seeing Instagram ads for like retro. He has a term for it. I forget what it is. Like retro video overlays. Like people pays like $50 to make it look like a broken electronic when he's actually doing that live.
yeah, it's like people are they want the ease of like they're still using their phones, but they want that like nostalgia. Some people who never even had that nostalgia like just want that like it's like, oh, I want it to look like a VHS. I'm like, how do you were you even alive when there was
Yeah, no
VHSs?
doubt. I feel the same way with instruments right now. Like I like built my home studio and I was like, finally a place to play my drums, and like I got my amps all mic'd and set up and whatever. And then I got more into producing and I'm like, oh man, yeah, I can just click and drag and have all the sounds in the world. Like I never even needed this spot. I could have just left my computer in my like kid's bedroom and been fine.
Yeah, and that's been like my thought with, you know, my current rig is very much like it's a visual history of like gear that I've acquired and integrated into a live setup. And now I'm at the point where it's like, okay, I could get like a Korg workstation and just have like a million different ways to layer a bunch of different sounds and only have to bring like one keyboard and maybe like the Moog sub fatty for like that particular tone option, instead
Yeah,
of like, you know, oh, I got pedals and this and like 2 different synths and which is still fun, but yeah, I see the benefit of like some of my friends who can just like not only like I guess have a core workstation, but then, you know, go to somewhere where they can get it backlined and then they have a thumb drive and they're like, all my sounds just ready to go.
yeah, no doubt, man. Another cool idea. Our boy Alex Riesenbeck from the Marsupials showed up at this gig one time. A MIDI keyboard and then an Apple, what's it called? I just got one too. The Mac Mini, the little
Oh yeah.
square. And then he had it. They have these like, well, before he was Velcroing it, but now they make it with those little slots in it, and he programmed it so that when his MIDI keyboard turns on without a keyboard or mouse, it automatically opens up to whatever DAW with all the sounds, and then you can just use your MIDI keyboard to pre-patch it all and have it all in there.
That I've often thought, because I have Keyscape, so I'm like I use my laptop to as another like sound source with what is it, the Key Largo from Radial, just like that box. And that's I've thought like, is there a way to get like, can I make the computer smaller? Like, how do I how do I just make everything more easier to use? And that sounds like that option sounds cool. And I saw someone who somehow got a really surprisingly good guitar tone by like using it was like it was like a a sound amp sim app on his iPad, and he was just dragging and like physically just dragging like, okay, I want this to go into there and this to hit the compression, and this is like just mapping it out with his finger. And then the tone that came out was like, oh, he's got like a beefy octave tone. It was like him and a drummer.
Nice.
And I was like, how, this is from an iPad.
Wow. Yeah. That rules, man. I love stuff like that. Another thing that I saw recently, have you seen those monitors that clip on the back of your laptop? I just started getting targeted with this, like 15-inch monitor. You can get one for either side and they collapse on the back of your laptop. They're like 0.6 pounds or something like that. Cause like I've thought about that before where like, we have like multiple laptops on stage, but like then we have like all these windows open, which is super annoying. But then that way you could have like your in-ear mix on one, your DAW on the other, it's like maybe your keyboard specific stuff on the other one. So you're doing the same amount that you would normally do with the computer, but like you could see them without like going down and clicking the button like while you're trying to also play a bass or whatever.
Yeah, that happened. It was either, or no, it was 2 years ago when I was in Ludington. I was getting some of those targeted ads, and I saw like it might have been a Linus Tech Tips video about a certain type of monitor, and the company was doing a sale, and it didn't clip on. It has like really strong like magnets, and you like one side you just kind of glue these like discs on framing the outside of your laptop, and then it just kind of just sticks in place, and it runs off of USB type C.
Yeah.
and I was like, what? And then I bought that, but I had already had a like a little like 13-inch portable monitor on like a little stand. So now I have the ability to like clip on the one monitor, put the laptop in my bag, and then have the other monitor in a case. So I just look ridiculous at a coffee shop with like 3 monitors. Just like
up the full rig.
Yeah, it's like there's always some guy that'll walk by like, oh, it looks like you're busy. It's like, yeah, I got a spreadsheet, got a calendar, got email, like I'm business. That's all I doing the business.
My wife told me one of like her coworkers brought an iMac to a business meeting the other day, like the full desktop, like 27-inch. Like sent me a picture. They're all sitting there with laptops, and they had one. And I was like, good for her. That's great. They're not easy to tow around. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm. I think the next computer thing, I see the issue of like with all the Bitcoin mining, like GPU prices are like just out of control. But I know at some point I want to upgrade the desktop I'm using. Well, I guess not upgrade the desktop, more get a new desktop entirely that's an upgrade from this current one. So I can like, I don't know, feel a little bit better about rendering times for video and like doing certain, like I feel like my CPU just keeps getting bottlenecked by like, like, oh, I'll open Chrome and then it's also trying to run up some things in the background and it freezes for a second. And you're like, don't, just hold on. Like,
no
let
doubt.
it load.
Are you on Mac or PC?
I'm on PC, but I had an old like MacBook years ago for a laptop, just because I wanted that for a laptop at the time, and it was, my friend was selling his used for a good price, and I keep hearing that Macs like they're putting out fancier chips or something for their next generation of laptops or something.
Yeah, I just got the M1. It's sick, dude. It's unreal. But I say that because I got this program called Clean My Mac. And maybe there's a PC equivalent. It's super cool. Like it will like send you reminders to empty your trash. It like hunts for redundant files that are in your catalog. There's virus protection and all kinds of stuff. And then it like gives you an overview of like, hey, like you're using like 30% of your hard drive for video. Like, do you really want to do this? And it's like the most advanced, like 10,000 foot view of a computer I've ever had. And I had bricked my like 2019 MacBook Air in a year. Like oddly, and it was because I shifted like a terabyte of Native Instruments plugins into a folder that was like a hidden folder. Like on the Mac, like you have to like hit option and then click some window, and I didn't know about it until like I found this program, and it just like super increased my efficiency. So like I would totally recommend, if you don't have something, like get something to optimize, like that looks at your files and can like consult you basically.
Yeah, because that sounds more comprehensive than I have like the free version of CC Cleaner, and that'll like, it won't tell me. I can open it and then it'll scan and be like, hey, there's a bunch of like these trackers, junk, like get rid of it. And then it feels better for a couple weeks, and then it's like it only put a band-aid, because I feel like half of CC Cleaner, half of using it is just getting advertisements for CC Cleaner Pro.
Sure.
And like it's not doing what it could do.
Definitely. Yeah, man. The little things. Again, thankful for this year to like slow down and realize some of that kind of stuff,
Yeah, I've enjoyed. I feel like I've spent more time just like, having that realization of like, all right, I'm burnt out for the day. I don't want to look at a screen. Let's go outside, or let's go, I don't know, drive to a friend's place if they'll have me. And, like just having an option to be like, oh, I don't have to, like, because part of my brain's still in like, college, where it's like, all right, it's 8 o'clock. I've done a bunch of work, but I still have a paper, coffee, let's do it. And then like, by 2 a.m. I've like finished researching the paper I should have researched a week ago. And so there's still that part of my brain that's like, all right, it's nighttime, keep going. And it's like, but I was already up early for this thing, or now
Yeah,
there's a little bit more balance than there was.
totally. Yeah. I actually started going back to grad school, like on a quadruple accelerated load of classes during quarantine. So I'm like knocked out half my degree. So I've been like kind of the opposite, like back in this school mentality, but I've been having fun with it.
Yeah, I've heard that from some people too, who like, like I play with Ian Thompson, and he just started going for his masters, and other people have, they've, for some reason they've like taken the time, like, oh, I'll start, going back to school, and just, whatever, at whatever pace. And it's interesting to have people make that decision now, when all of my teacher friends are like, it's hard to do school right now.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I see that with my 8-year-old, they're adapting, but I guess like I went to an online school that's been an online school for a while, so they've kind of got theirs down. But yeah, I just wanted to say I think it's super cool what you've done with your COVID time, man. Like launching this podcast, like everything you've done with Earth Radio, like you've been like you guys socials are really consistent, and I think that that's not only like a huge struggle for bands in general, but like during COVID especially, it's like, what am I supposed to talk about right now? Like how much I miss shows again, like and you guys, like I think my favorite post I saw you guys do is when you're in the studio and you like hooked up some pedals to the drum set. That was sick, dude.
Yeah, we, Justin's that dude who's like, he'll see something cool, and then 3 days later it's in his hands or something. Like he'll just grab onto it. And that was what was it, the purple PRPLL, I think it's not, I don't know, it has something to do with like like it's like a drone synth pedal, but with like a bunch of filter knobs and like and we chained it to or we just plugged in a mic adapter and like threw it at Madison's kit and
Nice.
just let it just do its thing.
That's so cool, man. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I have to remember that too, as much as, you know, I would love to have, 2019 felt like a super productive year with like, you know, like a kickstarting a new album and the Tiny Desk, our first Tiny Desk entry, and like, you know, the show, the festival, first times at certain festivals, little mini tour runs, and being like, all right, we're doing it. And then 2020 was like not a lot of going places, but still like, oh, we figured out something to do with trademarking. We put out a new record. We spent, you know, some time, you know, documenting the band, just doing things that weren't necessarily music, but also playing shows here and there, and having, you know, a little community built around the Rake Beer shows in Muskegon. So I have to remember the arc, as much as like each day I want to have a checklist that's like, I did 70 things, and it's like, did I, or did I just send 6 emails and like talk about 20 things and then do 2 other things?
Yeah, definitely. I think like it's so weird, but like one of the most analog things I stick to is a journal in that respect. Like, and I've gotten in this habit because of the pandemic, but like go before you go to bed, write down what you want to accomplish the next day, wake up, look at the list, revise it, cross it off, and then like review it at the end of the day. For some reason it feels so much more organic, like, and real to me than like I can like spank a Google Calendar. I mean, like I can map every second of my life on there, and sometimes I do, but like I hold myself more accountable when I physically write it down. I don't know why.
Yeah, I've noticed that too with like, I feel like I've had more things remembered. Like, I guess a funny example, I guess, would be like how Windows has the like, and maybe Mac has this too, like the sticky notes type of app, where you could just like have these little pop-up windows that load up with your, when you start your computer. And, you know, those sticky notes could, because it's all digital, those could be like, this sticky note has 20 things, and it's like, that's not real. But if I have a sticky note that's like, call this person, and then, oh, I call this person, and suddenly more gets done doing that than like having a sticky note that's like or like a digital one that's like every task I could think of is on that sticky note.
Yeah, totally. And you get the satisfaction like balling it up, like I literally crushed this task.
It's like, done. Yeah, but I'm excited for, you know, Earth Radio's. I mean, we have our next single coming up in May, and we're now doing twice a month at Rake Beer, and that'll kind of be a nice like home base for, we want to have like the home base shows for the Muskegon crew, because that's where Justin's from, and they've been, you know, really supportive and good folks as a whole, just all the Muskegonites we've met. And then, you know, have some stuff in Grand Haven that's kind of like the bridge between GR and Muskegon a little bit, and then also have stuff in GR, since that's also been like hometown, like people will show up if we do 1 or 2 shows a month. And that's panning out for the summer at least, which is, you know, more than what I thought we would do this year. Having
Yeah.
like multiple opportunities to like hit the, you know, like, oh, we'll do like a private show for the single release, and then we'll do the Rake Beer, which is like you could do yoga beforehand and then enjoy the show afterwards. And we'll have like, you know, Grand Rapids, like I think City Built's doing some kind of event, and they asked us to do something. But
Oh, sweet.
yeah, it's like a mix. Yeah, that community aspect of like people reaching out and being like, Earth Radio, I bet they want to do something.
They have Earth in their name. They want to do something on this planet.
Yeah, I'm thinking, because isn't today Earth Day?
Today is Earth Day. Yeah, it's y'all's day, man.
Yeah, I've been trying to like think like what would I post? I mean, I guess I could post like a clip of one of our videos, but that's like nature. But I always think about like you know, me trying to have some semblance of a marketing brain, like that could have been like a target date for content, but nobody in the band wants to do that kind of thinking, which even I don't, when you know it all comes push to shove. I
Yeah,
I want to
yeah,
plan it, but I don't want to plan it, but I want it to be fun, but I also want it to you know, I want it to be a piece of content that does like 5 things with one post. Like it's social metrics, it's advertising, but then it doesn't feel authentic to the band.
yeah. And I think there's something with like using your name in a literal context. Like I toured with this band called A Perfect Kiss that originally turned me on to that, and they're like, we will never do anything with Kiss lips, perfection, anything like that, because it feels too obvious
Mm-hmm.
in some ways. Maybe this example isn't the same, but yeah, actually, cool thing today in Traverse City with Earth Day is like you can destroy your old electronics for free, apparently. Which I had like a 50-inch TV drop off my wall that was gonna be like $75 to throw away. Uh,
Wow.
so pretty epic.
Yeah. Yeah, I took in an old TV. It was like I had an old CRT that just like it just wasn't working, and then I brought this CRT that's like a VHS CRT combo back to my parents' house, because my dad was every he's been digitizing old footage, but then he also likes taking out the old tapes and just putting them in and having that nostalgia of it. But yeah, I remember taking a TV to like Comprenew and being like, oh yeah, I have to pay them it's a service. It's not just like, here you go. Out of
Yeah,
sight, out of mind.
I was reading today is because there's actually like lead sometimes in it and some other like poisonous things, which I did not comprehend whatsoever.
Yeah, that's
Most people, I feel like for years, I think breaking a TV is probably semi rare as far as like, I mean, mine was because I skipped a drywall anchor about 8 months ago that came back to haunt me. Uh, but like, there was like this movement of like, get your TV to a thrift store because you want to get the flat screen, but you've got the clunker. But there's still people who want a clunker. But now we're getting to this point where it's like, they're all flat screens. Most people are going to like take it and put it in like their guest room or something. So like maybe there isn't as much being destroyed, but perhaps that's an off-base theory.
yeah, and I hear too, like just following like certain video game collectors and like this YouTube channel, My Life in Gaming, where it's like these two dudes who worked in like broadcast TV for years, but they're also like, vintage and I guess current video game collectors. So they do these like long form pieces on like, they'll spend like 45 minutes telling you like the video will be like best way to play PS3 games, and they'll look at like, the different output options, like different monitor options, different like oh, you could also play them up-resed on the digital store, you could play them and they do that for like older consoles. So I've seen like the certain warehouses they reference in like, I think in Seattle there's like a big computer parts warehouse where they just like break down all the things they get, and you can buy like old components from old pieces of circuitry, and it's like one of the only spots in the country that's like that comprehensive of like, I have this old CRT from 1998 and it needs like these things to work again, and you can buy like them from this warehouse.
That's so beautiful. Dude, like long form YouTube. I really like that phrase. Did you see this guy? He like digested this Disco Biscuits jam. I'll have to show it to you. Like we're fans of the band for sure. I've worked for them a couple of times too, and like got to see them live quite a bit. But this guy like made like the circle of fifths as a quadrant, and then was like had like faces of the members in each quadrant based on like tonally what mode they were shifting to, and like this is where they are, this is where they want to be, this is how they got to get there, and was like sliding their heads around based on musically how they were like tonally doing this jam. And like you're watching and you're like, I don't know if they're doing, if when they're physically playing this, if they're like, well, if I throw in like the supertonic D here, it's going to put me there, or if, you know, they're just in the moment playing it. But I don't know. I've seen this guy do that. He also, I saw another guy rip apart like Corey Henry and Jacob Collier, like linked up at jam randomly and jam for like 10 minutes. And he spent like over an hour explaining why it was so amazing musically and stuff. I've definitely found myself deep diving on some super weird stuff like that. And it makes me just respect that so much. Like they must have taken like 10 hours of their life to not only like have these considerations, but articulate them into content for something as random as two guys like sitting down at a grand piano in a hotel lobby.
Yeah, it's like that kind of stuff too. Is it helps, like, you know, as someone who wants to like explain a lot of concepts to people, but sometimes you're not in the right setting, or, you know, like you don't want to talk over people. Like you're at a bar and you're just having to shout over, like, it's like, no, he moves to Phrygian, and then so Phrygian is like having to like it's like, wait, let's start like okay, backtrack. Music is but the yeah, seeing like uh what's his name, like June Lee, like this dude who he knows one of my friends because they both went to the Jacobs School of Music in Indiana for their like graduate degrees, and it's like he's built part of his career on just transcribing Jacob Collier's music in depth, to the point where like when Jacob Collier released his transcription book, June Lee was like the co-author of the book.
Oh my God. That's awesome. He's like, well, you've already got it all figured out, man. Like, you want to go in on this with me or what?
Yeah. And then like also when I years ago, I went to this summer music festival. I was a participant, the Bang on a Can Summer Music Festival. And, you know, it's like 3 weeks. It's like international students all over, you know, young professionals, graduate students, all these different types of musicians performing. And one of the coaches was this dude, Derek Brown, who is normally a guitarist, but he learned he's like, he loves the, you know, the band Meshuggah, to the point where like he learned how to play drums, like transcribing their music. And somehow he got connected with one of the band members or like one of the crew, and has kind of a working friendship with the band now, and is like transcribing their music for like, you know, like the Meshuggah app. Like he wants to turn it into like an interactive, like here's the tablature and you can have it scrolling in real time, or like, you know, and having like all these concepts like fleshed out in writing, because they don't, you know, do sheet music. They're just like, here's an idea.
Yeah, that, man, that's so rad. I've been really inspired by theory lately. Like um like I don't know. I mean, like I said, I started out with punk rock, so I was like, you know, 1-3-5, we're in drop D, whatever. And then like
Yeah.
kind of got into metal where I was like, cool, I can break the rules, but I don't know what's happening. And then like when I first started playing with Bio, so I had taken 5 years off of music when my son was born, just wanted to like do like a full stop because I'd been at it like my whole life. And then when I came back, like I was like loose, you know, like I did a full stop, and like I needed to like regrow into it. And now I'm feeling more comfortable. But like theory is like something that like, you know, I started and stopped with like like here's major, here's minor, this is what a seventh means, like try to remember the notes or whatever, but like always knowing that there's this like higher tier. And then like as I've been producing a lot lately, like I was during quarantine, one of my goals was I like made a beat every single day for like almost 100 days straight, and like complete composition too, like strings, like everything. And then Biomassive started this thing with Story and Chromer, so we wanted to do this like split EP like in the 90s, like 2 songs from us, 2 songs from them, and then like we both play on each other's tracks and then do like 1 or 2 songs that's like just off the cuff, like whatever we come up with when we're in the room.
Yeah.
So I wrote a couple of songs for that they actually chose, and like I knew it was kind of complex, but like I didn't know why or how to explain it. And when Cromer came to my house, like I was blown away, dude, like how every single member of that band is like a music theory aficionado. Like they were like talking to me like in a foreign language, like dissecting my own song back to me, like I want to like what they say, like Mixolydian dominant Phrygian or something, like talking about two like that it was actually 2 modes, but 1 mode was like a dominant over the phrase or something. Like I just left with like my mind absolutely melted, and I'm just like, I want to be like you guys so bad.
Yeah, I find myself doing that with like, because Justin's songs are all like, I often joke that he's like a prog folk person. So it's like the all the ideas, like, you know, listening to Opeth and Mr. Bungle and like, you know, Billy Cobham and you know, all these different artists that shape his ideas. And then he can't, like, he can articulate like certain chords he's playing or like certain phrases, but like I'm you know, as I'm learning tunes that he's writing, I'm like, you know, he'll say like, oh, is this makes sense, it sounds kind of weird, and I'm like, no, it's, you know, it's like, it sounds right because it's, you know, you've teased this key already earlier in the song, and when it hits, it doesn't feel weird because you've teed it up. It's like you've introduced the listener, whether or not they realize it's like you cueing something. And or like, oh, this works because it's, you know, you're borrowing from the related minor key, and like it's a shared chord just like slightly altered, and he'll just be like, yeah, cool, here's the song.
That's awesome. I think that's so important, man. And that's how good dynamics work inside of bands too. I think Cromer is the only example of a band that I've ever personally worked with where every member of the band spoke that language. So it's almost like they started speaking French in my studio. Whereas like I'm used to like having similar conversations that you just explained. Like a couple of our guys are like really theory oriented. Well, like actually now 4 of the 7 are, and then myself and like 1 or 2 others are not quite as much. And so we're leaning towards like, this feels cool, like is it cool? And like that push and pull is super cool with like creating good songs, because like I think that was my fear of theory as a kid, or at least that was my excuse, was that I would feel too confined. So I like, that's why I didn't shy away. Now I like beat myself up for not grinding that in, but I still believe that like there is a magic that can occur when you have like both like the innocence and the intellect when it comes to composing.
Yeah, and especially like, I think of so many people I went to school with in my undergrad doing classical music, where there wasn't like a connecting thread of like, okay, we're in theory class analyzing pieces, and this is like teaching you how to like look at a larger composition and break it into smaller chunks and understand how it flows, because you're going to have to memorize it for your jury. Like there would be those people who, they'd do well in theory class, and then they wouldn't use those same concepts to analyze what they were working on. So they were just kind of hitting their head against the wall, like, this is so hard to memorize, and I don't know why. And it's like, well, like we've literally learned like, oh, we studied a Beethoven's sonata form. Like, we've looked at like 6 of them. Like, what a Beethoven sonata, like, how to listen to it and be like, okay, there's a theme, like, okay, the A section, there's development, like you have the roadmap. And it's like they get in a car and they're like, I don't know where to go. It's like, you have a map. It's right there.
No doubt. It's like not reading your textbook and taking the online quiz with like multiple choice kind of thing when you're not.
Yeah.
I've never thought about that, how like Beethoven would have like structures in that sense. It's so easy to think of like verse, chorus, bridge, like playing pop music and stuff, but like we've actually and like recently started using our own language, or maybe other people do this, where because we used to like try and explain our music which is instrumental, if like listeners don't know, but like
right,
like verse, chorus, bridge, whatever. We recently dropped that, and now we say like A and B, but like it gets like we started getting more complex because we started like changing A or B sections, like with 7 of us, to like add new movement to each part. So now we throw numbers after it. So like this is A2 or B2, a C. And then sometimes if we change it a lot, it'll be like ABA or like ABB. Stuff
right.
like that. And that's how we found like that common language between like our French and English of lack of theory and a lot of theory.
Yeah, just having some way to like explain what's going on. And that I kind of feel that way too with like certain people who grew up with, like an older generation that grew up with jazz. They understand like, all right, they're introducing the tune, and then it's everyone kind of taking, a chance at improv, or some people improvising. And then there's a way, like, after they go wherever they go with the improvisation, they bring the melody back, and it kind of recenters everyone around like, oh, we're back to the end of we're back to the melody of the song. It's going to end at some point soon. And those types of listeners can like pick that out just because it was in the popular music sphere, versus now where it's like, I feel like there's some aspects of like, oh, electronic music, the drop, like it's not subtle. It's like there's an event coming, you're feeling it, you're waiting for it, it's going to hit you. It's not like you having to understand like, okay, this is a tune, okay, they're playing the tune, I don't really it's not as tuneful.
Yes, totally. Man, that's so true. Like there's even new terms like the pre or the drop, second drop, things like that. Yeah, and I went through that, and so like when we were recording this new EP, some of the tracks have like 48 layers on them, and so we had to like start naming different things. Like this is the drip arp, this is like the wobble section, like one was like the Black Sabbath part, like because it has like fuzzy distortion on it and stuff. And it's like, but like when you're communicating with 9 people primarily through like Apple message texting and stuff, it's like we have to be descriptive, otherwise we don't know, especially when we're not in the same room doing it all.
Right. It's like shared language, but also the like, I'm not talking about the first time this happens. I'm talking about when the synth comes in, or I'm talking about when, this part hits, or
Yeah, definitely. Then we started like eventually when we were in the mix phase, we had to just get to time stamping like everything, like at 0508 to 0511, like this time edit is off and it needs to be fixed.
yeah. Yeah, it gets super specific. Well, and I think of when you were saying shared language, I don't know if you've listened to the band Kneebody at all.
Mm-mm.
They're like, they're interesting because it's like a band of like, you listen to them, it's like, okay, it's like a modern jazz fusion-y kind of group. They have really cool compositions, and they're fun to listen to. It's saxophone, trumpet, and then bass, drums, and keys, usually like an affected Rhodes of some kind. And they all have their own side hustle, like, oh, the bass player is like an MD for like pop artists, and the drummer's a producer, and he has a side band where he's basically like, he sings with like the headset mic, and then plays bass a certain way where it's like all he has to do is like hammer-ons, and then also still drums, and then can also trigger synths.
Whoa,
and
that
he's
sounds dope.
and he's like just somehow managing it all. But the band, they put out a video talking about, I think they've been a band at least 10, maybe 15 years, and they put out a video talking about their shared vocabulary, where, because they want to keep the music moving, and they want to have other people improvise, and they don't really want to have to plan too much. Like, they'll plan starts and ends and like certain transitions, but they have a way to be like each band member has a motif, like a musical motif, and then someone will be soloing, and there'll be a music figure that's like do 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 do, and that's like, okay, he's about to play someone's theme, like as this is happening on stage, and then he'll play like do 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 do, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, now it's the bass player's solo, or now they've changed tempo, or now they've changed keys, or now they and they can do it all through music cues, and it's crazy.
That's super cool. Yeah, that is the true unspoken language of music. And it's funny, we get like that when we're on tour, like when we're like a couple shows in and we're in the van and like we're like really grinding. But like when we're doing one-offs and stuff, it's like, and we're in rehearsals, like we've got our in-ears in and we have like talk back mics, and we're like yelling at each other like, don't forget the C-section, like, yo, where's the sample and stuff.
Here
like
it
that
comes. Yeah.
but then it's like we get on the road and eventually we get back there. But that's like the tricky dance of like being regional, and not being able to like do it as much as we'd like. But
Yeah, well, and especially for like, bringing on extra text and having like visuals and other components interacting with the music. I've like thought about that, like, is there anything, if it's just the 4-piece, is there anything we could add to those textures? And I think so far it's just been like, if David Ward gets on a show, we have the 5-piece, and that's extra percussion, there's pads, there's like a drummer that can swap with Madison for certain moments of songs. But yeah, it's hard to say like what could be not necessarily, I guess, pre-packaged, but like what could be an accompanying like backing track, or like, because I think of like metal bands who like, they're not touring with a string ensemble, and those strings are all pre-programmed anyway. So
yeah,
they can cue that up easier than having a tune that like shifts. It moves around too much to be like, all right, we have a backing track at 120, go. It's like,
I think that like you just nailed it. Is the issue is that you got to commit to the click when you're doing anything automated, which can have super pros and cons. The biggest con of which, you can crash a whole show if your drummer gets off. It gets real obvious really quick. But the pro is that you, with MIDI and stuff, you can automate. So it's like, I mean, you could get like 6 like Parkans that are wireless, even that are Bluetooth, that automate to your show, or like a whole video loop that's already like pre-established in that. And then like I think people get scared of it. And like, but like what we found is we break the click. Like we do it for, like, I'm not saying we don't, we have it for the majority of our show, but like there's sections where we're like, we don't want it here. Like we just turn it off. And like, that's where we can be free form. So, but it's like the stuff that is to the click has to be nailed. But like, don't be afraid to like, be like, we're not going to have it for this section, you know? And then you can get into like more like sound reactant territory and stuff. Have you heard of this app called Synesthesia?
No, I had a professor who had synesthesia, but I
Oh,
haven't
that's
seen the
awesome.
app.
I was trying to like force myself to have it for a while. I was like researching like, how do I get synesthesia?
Can I buy synesthesia?
Cue Amazon.
Is this on DoorDash?
But yeah, it's a visual editing app that's like super reactant to music. And you can even go through like your laptop speakers and stuff, and it makes visuals to your music. Like it's like using AI to do it, which is pretty sweet. I mean, like that, like I think that's like a whole other podcast, or like 20 is like AI's influence on art. Like I just picked up this plugin called Scalar. Have you heard of that?
Scalar. No.
It's like
maybe
it's AI for piano, and you can put it in your DAW and it will recognize anything you're doing. Like I've thrown like seriously complex stuff at it and it knows what to do. And then like again shows you the circle of fifths. Like you're here, you want to get here. This is the like melody that should be or could be done, and like 200 parameters you can change in which to make it happen.
Oh
yeah. For like $40, dude, like it's just insane. And so it's like then it comes into the artistic decision of like, how much do I want AI to affect my art? But it's like we're talking through a computer right now. Like we use robots and technologies every day. Like that's part of the dichotomy of Biomassive, is like this flirtatious relationship with robots making our art, you know.
Yeah, the combination of like it's like electroacoustic, but then like the digital aspect is, it's not just like oh, it's an orchestra and a guitar, electric guitar or something. It's you know, oh, it reminds me of like this pianist friend of mine, Vicky Chow. She did this piece written by, I think the guy's name is Tristan Perch, and it's like for piano and like it's like 50 speakers or something, like just in this big art installation style like arc. And the concept was like to create a piece that it's like, it's almost like a duet between the performer and the sound engineer, because the way that the sound gets put around this big speaker array is like part of the piece. And it's just this weird sonic experience of like, I see her doing something, and then something might get delayed or like, you know, manipulated, or like, you know, all of it at once, or like parts of it. And it's just like this weird crazy piece.
That is so cool. I've never thought about that. And you could definitely easily do it from a technology standpoint with matrices and mix buses nowadays. It would have been interesting to do that like 1975, you know?
Yeah, with just knobs, and like hopefully all the cables running to the right spot. Otherwise, this knob's just doing nothing. And yeah, I'm looking forward to how more, yeah, I guess technology getting cheap, other types of tech getting cheaper, other, you know, other people kind of getting hip to like, you know, something like Spitfire Audio with their giant library of cool free stuff, or like, you know, taking like getting more freeware or cheap stuff that's like actually usable, and not just like, oh, this is good for demos, or this is good for, you know, like whatever. It's not going to be the final product.
Yeah, we're just doing it. There's a name for it. I forget what it is. Like free. It's like software as a service is a term, but there's another term for software that's implied to be free, but it actually costs, like how people say TurboTax is free, but it's like if you have dependent filings, it's not. If you have more than like da 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 da, but then they come out like TurboTax is free, CPAs get out of here, we got this. Like
yeah. Yeah, it was like, or I think of like Madison when he was like last year first getting, he was like figuring out like what DAW does you want to use. Like he got, you know, an interface to run some mics, and he did like a trial of Pro Tools and then didn't really realize it, or like I don't think it was in the fine print where he noticed it. He like spent a chunk of time, like, you know, everything was set up, he tracked something, and then the trial version of Pro Tools wouldn't let him export it. and he was just like, I need this for it's like 3 a.m. and he can't export this thing, and he needs it for a client.
Dang, someone just told me that happened to him on Ableton, where as soon as their trial expired, it locked all the files and you can't export it.
It's like, try it at your own risk.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm diehard Logic, man. I don't know that I'll ever get out of that one. It's just too user friendly for me.
Yeah, I definitely, like, if I get some sort of Mac computer, it's gonna be tempting to like want to just stay in Logic. I'd started learning Pro Tools, just, you know, at some point it'd be nice to get behind the console at Third Coast and like try and get onto that level of production. But at least right now I know how to like use it to send tracks and record certain things, and I'm going to try my hand at like self-producing an album. But
nice, good for you. I'm always astonished, like in my collaborative nature, when I talk to someone and I'm like, yeah, do you want to do this vocal feature? Like, oh, you don't have $100 microphone and like $50 interface? Like, can I ship you one? Because I really want you on this track. And if it's like $150 to give you the only missing technology to have your voice on my song, I would love to do that for you.
Yeah, definitely. I was at least lucky with part of learning at Grand Valley was like seeing all my friends who were in the composition studio, like they were getting interfaces and learning all that stuff. And I was like, oh, I should probably learn how to at least, you know, plug in an interface, get audio into the computer and be able to record it and eventually stream it. And now here we all are, just having to have done that.
No doubt, man. Put you in a jumpstart position for COVID. It's good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is great chat.
Yeah, man.
I'm approaching my time being up, at least for me being in this room and having to go out into the world again. But yeah, so you mentioned a tour, you mentioned Biomassive and other projects. I guess where should people look for you? Where, because this will come out, like, as this is taping, this will come out tomorrow. So I'll, nice. Yeah, whatever dates or things you're doing.
Yeah, biomassive.org has all our tour dates. At the time that this comes out, we'll be at Union Street for the weekend. And then it's like we're doing Ohio, Indiana, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Florida. And then we're going to announce some summer dates. And yeah, Monolith, our brand new EP, is coming out. We'll have advanced copies on Friday, and then digitally it'll be out May 15th.
Nice. Yeah. That's looking forward to hearing the tunes and seeing how going out into the world looks for the Biomassive crew.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'll send you a copy of it.
Yeah, awesome. And I guess for my closing pluggables, if you dig the podcast, listeners out there, you can support at patreon.com/Dr. Snedeker. For as little as, $5, you can get a mailed newsletter with the sticker of the month club, different artwork that I commission from different people, and discounted merch, early podcast episodes, all sorts of goodies. And you can also just find everything else at DutcherSnedeker.com. All the links. I think I still need to keep updating it. Like, I forget that I need to add a thing, and then the website gets another page of something. But you can watch videos, listen to music, read album reviews, all that good stuff. And yeah, thanks again. That's good chat.
Yeah, man, this was great. I had a lot of fun. Hope you have a great day, my friend.
Yeah, you too. Good luck with the tour.
Thank you so much. We'll see. Party at the end of the world, baby.
Yeah. Woo. Awesome.
All right.